So, what if I told you that one of the most powerful 3D creation tools on the entire planet, a tool that can be used to make Oscar winning films, is completely and totally free? This is the incredible story of Blender, a piece of software that didn't just survive a total collapse, it was reborn from it, and in the process, it completely changed the game for creators everywhere. All right, let's get into it.
To really get a grip on just how big Blender has become, we don't have to look very far. In fact, we just have to look at the biggest stage in filmmaking.
Yep, that's right. In 2024, the Oscar for Best Animated Feature went to a film called Flow, and it was made entirely in Blender. And we're not talking about just a few assets here and there. Nope. The entire movie, from the first polygon to the final render, was all done inside this one piece of software. And that really brings us to the big question, right? In an industry where the top software can cost you thousands upon thousands of dollars, how on earth did a free, open source program not just compete, but actually rise to the top? The answer is a wild story of near disaster and the power of community.
To understand how Blender even got to the Oscars, we gotta rewind the clock. We have to go back to the moment it almost vanished completely.
So here's the quick history. Blender gets its start way back in 1994 as an in-house tool for a Dutch animation studio. A few years later, in '98, they release it to the public as freeware. But then, disaster strikes. In 2002, the company behind it goes bankrupt. Development just stops. And that really could have been the end of the story. But its small, super passionate community had other ideas. They launched a campaign they called Free Blender with one ambitious goal: buy the source code back from the investors. The price tag? €100,000. Now you gotta remember, this is 2002. Kickstarter wasn't even a thing yet. This was basically unheard of. And yet, in what has to be one of the earliest examples of large-scale crowdfunding, the community hit that goal in just 7 weeks. 7! And with that, they bought Blender's freedom, releasing it as open source software for anyone, anywhere to use, change, and build upon forever.
Okay, so the community saved it. But what exactly did they save? And what has it turned into? Let's pop the hood and take a look inside the toolbox. You know, one of the best ways to understand Blender's unique culture is to meet Suzanne. She's this low-poly chimpanzee head that the original developers snuck in as a kind of Easter egg right before the company went under. She has since become this beloved icon, a quirky mascot for the whole community. She's the go-to model every artist uses to test out shiny new materials or complex lighting setups. It's kind of perfect, right? A weird, wonderful mascot for a revolutionary tool. But Blender is so much more than a mascot. See, it's not just one tool. It's an entire production studio packed into a single download. It handles literally every step of the 3D process. You can do your initial modeling and sculpting, then jump right into complex animation and physics simulations. We're talking cloth, water, fire, you name it. And then you can do your final rendering and even video editing without ever leaving the program. And here's a brilliant example of its versatility. Blender comes with 2 incredible render engines built right in. First, you've got Cycles. Think of Cycles as your professional studio photographer. It is meticulous, it path traces every ray of light to create these jaw-dropping, photorealistic images. It's for that final perfect shot. But then you've got EEVEE. EEVEE is like having a real-time video game engine at your fingertips. It gives you instant visual feedback, which is an absolute game changer for previews, game development, and especially for stylized animations, like that Oscar-winning film, Flow. So a free tool this powerful, it makes you wonder, right? If nobody's buying it, who's paying the bills? Who's funding all this development? Well, the answer lies in a pretty brilliant organizational ecosystem. It all rests on these 3 main pillars. First, you've got the Blender Foundation. That's the nonprofit that kind of steers the ship. Then there's the Blender Development Fund. This is where the money comes in. It lets regular folks and, as we're about to see, massive corporations chip in to pay the developers. And finally, you have the Blender Studio. Think of it as an in-house film studio that makes these incredible open-source movies that not only show off what Blender can do, but also push its features to the absolute limit. And this funding model is the key. It's absolutely crucial. It allows the very industries that use Blender to invest directly back into making it better. This is a huge shift in thinking. You have these corporate giants realizing there's more value in supporting a shared, open tool than locking everything down in their own expensive proprietary software. And the list of companies that have bought into this idea, it's just staggering. I mean, check this out. You've got Epic Games, the creators of the Unreal Engine. Yeah, a competitor in some ways, but they see the value.
Then there's Apple, making sure Blender absolutely flies on their latest hardware.
You have NVIDIA pouring resources in to optimize performance for their GPUs, which helps literally everyone.
Of course, Microsoft is a major backer too. And the list just keeps going. AMD, Unity, Intel, Meta, the biggest names in tech are all writing checks to support and improve this completely free open source tool. It's an entirely new way to build sustainable software.
So with that kind of industry muscle behind it, and a passionate global community driving it forward, Blender's reach has gone to some places you would probably never expect.
For real, NASA uses it. They create 3D models for the public and even built an app called Experience Curiosity so you can drive the Mars rover. How cool is that? In Hollywood, it's been the secret weapon for pre-visualization on massive blockbusters like Spider-Man 2 and Captain America: The Winter Soldier. It's handled VFX for shows like The Man in the High Castle and wild movies like Hardcore Henry. And, of course, it's a powerhouse in animation, from Netflix's Next Gen to the breathtaking visuals of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
That this story is far from over. I mean, the whole point of open source is that it never, ever stops evolving. And the next big leap is already happening. A full, honest-to-goodness version of Blender is now in development for the iPad. That's going to bring this incredibly powerful creative suite to a whole new generation of artists on a totally different kind of device. Which kind of leaves us with this one big thought. Blender's journey from a bankrupt company to an Oscar-winning industry standard proves that a tool's power isn't about its price tag. It's about the community that rallies around it. And as free, incredibly powerful tools like this just keep getting better, it really makes you ask a fundamental question. In this digital age, who really holds the power to create?